I tell my people that I don't want you getting taken advantage of anymore. And that's why I fight for you to be here legally here. I can't fight for you to be illegally here. And then you're what? You're a slave to this country. I don't want you to be a slave. I want you to have the full freedom and liberty that all Americans have.
Welcome back to The Unknowns. My name is Charlie Stone, and today we have Bianca Gracia, founder and president of Latinos for America First. Big supporter of President Trump, has raised millions for conservative causes, and to which at one point she gave herself the moniker a mini Marjorie Taylor Greene. We'll get to that in a second. Thank you so much for joining, Bianca.
You're very welcome, Charlie. Thank you for having me on the show.
Well, do you still want that moniker? Because obviously Marjorie Taylor Greene and President Trump have had a falling out. I'm just curious, what's your read of that, and why is that going on?
There's a fallout because, I think sometimes in life you have to make these choices. And you either are going to stand for what you really believe in, okay? And she really believes in what she believes in, and she has a passion for it. And I feel that that's very brave of her to do, that she's stepping outside of the bounds and she's saying, I won't be controlled over anything. And if this is what I really feel and I'm convicted to do, then she's going to do it even if it makes other people uncomfortable or it's not an agreement with the person that she's supported all these years.
Well, certainly President Trump has had a couple of weeks, right? He was not still supportive of Marjorie Taylor Greene. In fact, he implied that she was a traitor and that he would back anybody who would run against her. Is that, you've been a supporter of President Trump. Is there something about the president at times where you're like, ooh, maybe you shouldn't have done that?
Yeah, listen, yes. I mean, there's been times that I've disagreed with maybe some of his decisions. And once I was very vocal about it and got like the mainstream media came after me, came after him. And I'm like, I am still a person here on this earth and I'm very entitled to my opinion. Does it mean that I'm never going to support him? No, it doesn't mean I'm never going to support him. Does it mean that I now am not going to like him? No. But, we have to learn in this hour, and especially after everything that's happened with Charlie Kirk, we have to start learning to have conversations with people, even with people we don't agree with. If there's, how are you going to come up with a solution to a problem if you're not willing to sit down and talk? And so you have these sides that are fighting back and forth, Charlie, and it's, we just need to get past that.
I think that's a great goal. Let's all go there. But there are times when the president doesn't go there. Recently on Air Force One, he told a reporter from Bloomberg to quiet piggy. Like, this is not the type of, leader that's going to lead us there. Look, you are an advisor. You are head of a Latina organization. What would you say to President Trump to say, you know what? That's not acceptable.
President Trump is President Trump. And he says things sometimes that, yes, can be offensive. Listen, back in 2016, you know how much slack I got when everybody was like, oh, he called your people bad hombres and he's going to build the wall and make Mexico pay for it. I mean, I got so much slack for supporting him in 2016. But, that's really what had Hispanic Latinos gravitate to him. So this is the analogy that I use with President Trump. The reason Hispanic and Latinos have supported him in all these years, and nobody has been able to figure it out. And I'm like, it's easy. It's easy, people. This is why. Because President Trump has managed to be attacked in his first 4 years, attacked by the media, by his own party, by the Democrats, by world leaders. He was attacked by so many people. But here's the thing. When he got attacked, it's like the boxer in a boxing match. He can get upper jab, he can get knocked down. But when he gets back up, he's going to come back at you 10 times stronger. And that's what I always said. This is why Hispanics gravitated to him, because he had that boldness. He has that backbone. He continues to fight. He gets up and he fights and he comes at you harder and harder. And it's not always a cookie cutter and the perfect politician, but he is a luchador for the people. So he's a fighter of the people. So he says things sometimes. And you know what? Whether I agree with him or not, it doesn't really matter. I say things a lot of the times. I'm not a perfect person. And I say things a lot of times that, may not appease to people. But Charlie, that's what makes us unique. And so I really, at this point in time, I just feel that President Trump needs to continue to be President Trump, because that is what we voted him. He was very transparent about everything he was going to do, and he continues to do that.
It is slipping. In fact, it is slipping significantly. There was a poll that came out yesterday from Ventez. We Are Voters. 1 out of 3 of Latino supporters who had supported Trump regret their decision. 69% Latino voters say his tariffs have increased costs. 68% believe that the economy is poor due to him and the Republicans. And his favorability rating among Hispanic voters is 36%. What is he missing? How has this slipped so much? If you were to advise him, what would you say?
So I just wrote an op-ed, and it was published on Newsmax, and I addressed this exact, issue. I've actually been trying to sound the bullhorn, and I've been trying to tell people in the administration, people outside of the administration, that we don't have. Okay, so Political and Washington Post, I think, put out articles saying the same thing that you're saying. The Latino support is slipping for President Trump, and they're trying to gear it towards mass deportation. I said, we don't have a mass deportation problem. We have a messaging problem. This is a GOP RNC messaging problem, an administration problem at all levels. It is a messaging problem. So here's the deal. When the Republican Party doesn't give Hispanics or Latinos a person that can relate to them, a person that can talk to them and understand them, someone that still continues to build a relationship with a community. If you give them nobody, they're not going to come back and vote for you. They're not going to support you, because you're not continuously building that relationship. I think that goes for anybody. It's not just Hispanics. It could be anybody. If I go and ask someone for a vote, and then, I just neglect them for the next 4 years, do you think those people are going to be, when I come back and ask for their vote? So it's a messaging problem. They have failed miserably on messaging or giving our communities across the country people that can go, and whether they're liaisons, whether they're surrogates, it doesn't matter. We have a messaging problem, and that's why the Hispanics are slipping. That is why.
So do you think, as you look towards 2028 and a presumptive candidate of J.D. Vance, because President Trump cannot run 3 times, we know that, right? Is it a problem with Hispanics? Are the Republicans facing a cliff with Hispanics
Absolutely.
unless they do something else?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So what do they
we will lose.
when you
We will lose 2026. Yeah, we will lose 2026, and we will lose 2028 if they do not re-engage and give. We call it, giving Hispanics a seat at the table throughout. Look, we have Lori Chavez, who is over Department of Labor. We have Marco Rubio, but think about Hispanics are what, almost. We are almost a majority minority in this country, and we're not representing this administration. Now, I don't want people to think that, oh, you're race baiting, and just because you're Hispanic or brown, you should have a seat. No. What I'm asking this administration is, do you believe that we don't have Hispanics who are actually qualified to take on these positions? Because I know a lot of qualified Hispanics that can do the job better than people that in government right now are doing the job.
You had mentioned messaging, and you also mentioned deportation and the deportation dilemma. The optics are not good, right? I mean, and despite the thoughts about deporting the worst of the worst, these are people who take care of children. These are people who just have jobs. They're hardworking people in this country, and yet they're being ripped by ICE, who's not wearing any identification and in masks, and some would say not affording any of these people due process. Is that a perception issue that somehow this administration is out of touch and over-indexing deportation of Hispanics, Latinos?
So again, goes back to the messaging. They have no one that looks like them speaking to them and telling them this is what's coming down the pipeline. Univision and Telemundo are not doing us any favors right now. They're not all they're doing is terrorizing the community. But you don't have people in the administration literally telling them this is what you have to do. Listen, Trump, we overwhelmingly voted for him in 24 because he told us he was going to mass deport. He told us that. We voted for that.
Well, there's two things I want to follow up with. Number one, right, despite Tom Homan's sort of protestations about going after the worst of the worst, many independent organizations, about 71% of detainees, lack convictions other than possibly being here illegal. So they're not going after just the worst of the worst. They're going after anybody who has been here for a long time and never got status. The other thing that you raise is very interesting. Why not give, right, under the Constitution, under the Fifth and the 14th Amendment, any person, right, as the Supreme Court has said, due process. So if someone isn't here, why aren't these people being allowed the opportunity to go before a court, allowed to present why they're here, let the state and the federal government present why are we in such a rush to evict people without due process? And do you agree with that? Do you think they're
Yeah.
entitled to due process?
So the Constitution clearly it states they're illegal. So that we don't owe them anything. We don't owe them.
Well, no,
They're
no, no,
not
no.
here.
The
No, no, no,
Constitution
no,
actually,
Charlie.
no,
No,
it
no, no,
says any
Charlie. They don't.
person,
It
any
doesn't matter.
person.
They're not legally here. They don't.
Yeah, but
They don't.
how do
Under our
we?
laws, they're
Yeah,
not
but how?
due process. They're
Okay, but
not due process, Charlie. They're
if
just not.
if if the Constitution and the Supreme Court, case after case after case, if you're in this country, you have certain due process rights. Why would that not be proper to ensure that someone wasn't, taken back to a country that they didn't even come from? Why are we depriving them the opportunity for the state and the federal government to present evidence?
We don't owe them any due process. They're here illegally. So they should have thought about that before they
Well,
crossed the border coming here illegally, because they
so that's
knew that they were breaking the law, and they come here
yeah.
and then they expect us to what? Oh, welcome
Well,
aboard, and we're just going to
that's
all the laws from this country now appeal to you. Because let me tell you, Charlie, I can tell you right now, if I crossed over to Mexico illegally right now, I'd have no human rights. I'd have no rights at all. They have the strictest illegal problem or illegal law in the nation that I've read. They would throw me in a can, and not even
well,
President Trump will be able to go get me
we're
out.
not governed by Mexican law. We're governed
Well,
by the U.S. law and the
which we should be at a
Constitution.
higher standard. We should be at a higher standard than Mexico.
I just want to reiterate that the Constitution of the United States, it says any person in the Fifth and the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court has consistently interpreted that to mean any person. And the reason it's not so much like black and white, well, they're just here illegal. Those are conclusions. There are people who are 40 years they've been in this country. 40 years. They have families. And
So,
instead
Charlie,
of wait, just
okay, go ahead.
why can't they be allowed to state their case? It might have been they had documents. It might have been that they were at some point given affirmation by the government that yes, indeed, you have status. Whatever it is, that's what due process is for, to allow any person charged with any crime in this country, any person, the opportunity to present their side.
This is what the problem is that this administration doesn't have people like me and others out there delivering this message and educating our people. The lack of our communities, perish for lack of knowledge. And that's what's happening right now. We have to be more knowledgeable. Why do you have to call them immigrants? They're not immigrants. They didn't come here legally. They came here illegally.
Can I ask you just a quick question? You obviously are a big advocate for Latinos, American citizens who are Latinos and Hispanic. Do people ever challenge you and say, you're hurting our people? Is that ever sort of brought up to you? And if so, what is your response to that?
Honestly, Charlie, I think I'm just so strong-willed. I mean, people just don't really come challenge me. I've had very few in the last, 10 years of people that, I have had actually one that asked for a sit down, and I definitely did a sit down with them, and they represent illegals, and we had a very, very great conversation. I was willing to listen to them. They were willing to listen to me, and we agreed to disagree. And then we agreed to agree on some things. And we tried to figure out, how can we work together? And I'm like, you have to follow the law. I mean, that's how we're going to work together. Listen, I'm like, there is just, we just cannot negate and turn our cheek and say, okay, well, we're going to be all forgiving about you breaking the law all these years. And we just have to make our people understand that right is right and wrong is wrong. And we have to make sure that they're on the right path. And right now, I've been telling them, there is an app. You can go register. and they'll pay you $1,000 to take you back to your country. You can go back to your country, but guess what? That app now pretty much identifies that you've been in this country, and they'll ask you all the questions, and you're now going to be in line to come back quicker, to come back to the United States. And guess what? You're going to come back legally. So you'll never have to live under anybody's shadow, under a rock. You won't get abused for wages. You'll get real benefits in this country that all Americans get. And that's what my message has been to people. Like, you have an opportunity right now to make this right. And Charlie, I know personally, I know people that have already taken advantage of this, and some have returned within, 3 months, 6 months. And so I know that the process works, and people just have to trust the process. It's not, this is not because we hate our people. We love our people. We want our people to come back. But I fight for our people, Charlie. The reason I fight so hard for this legal immigration is because I'm sick and tired of America using the Hispanic, hardworking Latinos, Spanish people, building this country up, being the backbone of this country, and they don't get the right wage. They get mistreated at work, and they don't get the same benefits that the Americans do. That's why I fight for legal immigration. I tell my people that I don't want you getting taken advantage of anymore. And that's why I fight for you to be here legally here. I can't fight for you to be illegally here, and then you're what? You're a slave to this country. I don't want you to be a slave. I want you to have the full freedom and liberty that all Americans have. And that's always my plea to my people, and they totally embrace my message, Charlie. They understand it because they understand my passion, and they know that my heart is in the right place for them.
All right, Bianca Gracia, thank you so much for joining. I have one last question for you. The show's called The Unknowns. You got to tell me something unknown that you've never told anybody else, maybe a close family member. What's unknown about you?
I love to drive fast cars. And so maybe there you go, an unknown. Something that I really want to do in my life is I want to get into one of those NASCAR cars that you can drive around, and I want to do that. That's an unknown. Nobody knows that. Nobody knows that. I would love to do that.
Breaking news here on The Unknowns with Bianca Gracia. Thank you so much for your time. We wish you nothing but the best and hope you come back when you can.
Hey, Charlie, thanks for having me. God bless you. And thanks for having me on The Unknowns today.